G'day everyone, it's Curtis here and welcome to an On The Back Wheel review. Today we're checking out the Kawasaki KLX300. It's the brand new one from Kawasaki. It's replacing the KLX250. Let's check it out. Yo! Oh, we're gonna burn. Had to. Woo! Come on! Woohoo! So I've had the bike for about 3 days now. First day we just rode it around town, did some odds and ends kind of things. The second day was nearly all off-roading with some freeway riding. And then today was all on the road. So we went over and did some canyon riding. So I've also got the Super Motard, so we're kind of comparing the two at the same time. The first thing I want to cover is the looks. This is the camo version. This one retails for $200 more than the standard version. I think it's about $5,800 as it is now. Honestly, this is the version I would get. I think it looks really good like this. The colors are great. It's got a blacked out frame, swing arm and fork legs. And I just think it looks really neat and tidy. It's a nice looking bike. In terms of changes to the bike, the main thing is the engine. Has a larger engine capacity now, but the rest of the bike hasn't really been changed. The only real other change is to the radiators here. They're slimmer now and they're meant to direct air away from the rider. And also the suspension is supposed to have different settings, but no one actually knows what that means, not even the Kawasaki guys. So we'll start off with the engine. The engine itself, I'm going to compare it directly to the KLX250 and other similar bikes because I've ridden them. Over the 250, this has noticeably more bottom end and mid-range. It's not a grunt machine, but where the CRF 250L and KLX 250 have a completely linear, flat power delivery where nothing really happens, this actually has a little bit of it's got a bit of drive forward, like it's actually got a bit of punch. It's definitely not exciting, but it's actually got a bit of personality in the mid-range now where there's a bit of a surge going on, whereas it never had that before, and I really appreciate that. This bike now has the KLX300R cam profile, so it's slightly more aggressive. It's just got a little bit more bottom end and mid-range punch. Top end wise, I think it's exactly the same as it pretty much was. Maybe there's a tiny bit more, but it's just a more usable and easier to ride bike. You're better off keeping it in the bottom to mid, like this right here, about there. You can hear it. It's got a little surge there. Where a CRF 250L and KLX 250, they just got nothing. Like they're just completely linear. This is very similar, but it actually has a little bit of a surge. Nothing crazy, but there's a surge there. That's flat out. So it's very happy in that mid-range center section where it's got a little bit of torque. It definitely has a little bit of torque. See that? Good bit of surge there. All right, what I'm going to do is give you an idea of how low this thing lugs just up this little hill here. Like, look at that. Doesn't even feel like it's going to stall. Cook. Like, that's impressive. The gear ratios, I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change the gearing. It works absolutely perfect. We were doing off-road riding yesterday and I just pretty much left in third, click up to fourth every now and again. It's very flowing kind of trails we're on. On tight corners, I'd knock it back to second and just lug out. I would use first gear every now and again for the tight downhills and stuff, so you get the engine braking, but overall I wouldn't change a thing. It's fine on the highway. Like cruising on 60, 65 is very comfortable. 70, it does start to strain a bit and you do get some vibrations. But I just leave it as it is and ride it. It's completely fine. If you want to be a bit of a hooligan like me, the engine does disappoint a little bit. Like it's a little bit underpowered, to be honest. Like you're flat out getting the front wheel up. Like I was doing some slow speed stuff, trying to get the front wheel up in first gear. So stop and pop it up and it would get up, but man, it was a struggle. So it's not that kind of bike. If you're going over crests and whoops and stuff, yeah, you could get the front wheel up and just kind of hold it up. But besides that, it's not that kind of bike. It's smooth, it's tractable, it's very easy to ride, great for hill climbs, very smooth engine, like incredibly smooth engine. The throttle response is absolutely perfect. It's very smooth action here. There's no on-off throttle whatsoever. It's just smooth, it's tractable, it's predictable. The fueling is perfect. If we do some like, look at this, very gentle, it doesn't jerk or anything in the on-off throttle response. I didn't find any flat spots and I was looking for them. It's a very electric motor in general. The fuel injection is fantastic. My KLX300 is the carburetor model and it's a pain in the ass to start sometimes. It was this every time, cold morning, when it was a bit warmer, boom, on the button, starts. You stall on the hill, starts up straight away. Very nice. Oh, no. Whoa! Shit. All right. How good's electric start, everyone? So overall, I really like the motor. It's a definite improvement over the 250. It could have more power for me, could have more punch. I would be interested to see how it goes with an FMS system, an opened up exhaust and a tune. But the thing is, one of the great things about this bike is how quiet it is. So I'd be loath to kind of get rid of that. I'd like it to be quiet still. But overall, I really like the engine. It works great off-road. It's really smooth on the road. It'll cruise 60, 65. We did some highway work. It's very comfortable. I'll put some separate videos up for that. But yeah, it's a nice motor. It's very smooth. I like it. You're not going to be excited by it. It's very tractable. It's easy to ride. It's a KLX300, man. It's smooth. It's like the 250, but a little bit more and better. Okay, I just want to touch on the transmission, 6-speed box. As I mentioned before, I wouldn't change the gearing at all. The ratios were fantastic. The clutch is really smooth. Me, myself, I use 3 fingers like this all the time. That's how I use my clutch. You could use 1. You can use 1. Look, I'm using 1 comfortably there, 2. That's how I use mine. No issues whatsoever, really light. All right, let's talk about the suspension. I will say this. The suspension is really, really good for the price of this bike. I haven't ridden the CRF300, but I would be very surprised if it's going to have better suspension than this. The suspension is soft and supple, but it has some bottoming resistance. I was extremely surprised at how capable it is. Yes, we weren't in the desert, we weren't smashing out whoops, we weren't doing big jumps, but doing small jumps and stuff at a decent speed, very plush, boom, smooth, decent bottoming resistance. I am 190 pounds without gear, so maybe 200 with gear, no issues whatsoever. It works well on the road. It can get a bit soft under braking and stuff like that. So it's definitely made for more off-road, gravel kind of roads, but still perfectly fine on the street. One thing I'll say is the bike feels really stable. It's a stable bike, yet it's still very nimble, easy to ride. So we did 100 miles off-road and I could have kept riding. There was no issues whatsoever. We also did some freeway riding and stable, no issues whatsoever. Over 70, I really wouldn't want to be doing that all the time, but it can do it. Okay, the handlebar layout. For me, the bars are a little bit too low. They could be just a little bit higher, especially when you're standing. It's exactly the same as the KLX300. You need to raise the bars up a little bit or have a higher bend. All the instruments and gauges, they are solid and feel good. They're high quality. All the road equipment's good quality. The light is not too bad. It's not amazing, but it's reasonably bright for what it is. Yes, I wish they had an LED, but this is a pretty cheap bike, to be honest. Okay, the brakes. The brakes on this are a little bit spongy feeling initially, but they actually work quite well. I think this is good when you're riding off-road because you're not grabbing and sliding, whereas on the road, I would like a little bit more. The back brake is in a fantastic position. I like where it is. It's easy to reach for your foot, so it's not too high and not too far to the side. Sometimes bikes do that. Let's get into things I don't like. First thing is the foot pegs are way too small, and that's exacerbated by this engine casing sticks out a bit. So when you're riding, you sit like this. See, there's no gap there, so your foot is right on the engine casing. If this was out a bit further like that, that would be fantastic. I actually got sore feet from the foot pegs being so narrow yesterday because I'm standing up all the time off-road, so they need to be changed. The bars are perfectly serviceable, but they're made of marshmallow, and I think after a couple of crashes, you would need to replace them. I like that it's got this little bit of storage compartment here. It's very good for putting insurance or something like that in, and a little bit of tools. It's got this brake caliper protection here, fantastic. The new exhaust is extremely quiet. One thing that did surprise me was the stock tires are actually pretty good. The tires are Dunlop 605s. I like them, they're fine. They worked well on the street, they worked good off-road. The front could use a bit more bite, it would slide out. We were riding on quite skatey surfaces yesterday, but the front would wash out every now and again, so that's something to be aware of. But I would leave these on, I wouldn't replace it, I'd just ride it until they wore out, and then I'd maybe put something a little bit more aggressive on. The stock seat is quite good, but has this strap here, which is quite annoying because that's where your ass sits. So you kind of rub your butt on that over time. I would take that off, but the seat itself is quite comfortable. It was about halfway through the day that you notice that, yeah, my butt's getting a bit sore and it's not the greatest, but overall, a pretty good stock seat. One thing for people who are a bit shorter is it doesn't have a very high seat height. I'm 6 foot, I comfortably touch with 2 feet. So if you are shorter, say under 5'8" or something like that, you'll be able to touch with 1 foot, no issues at all. This is a great base for a light adventure bike. I think it does need a bigger tank. The 2-gallon tank yesterday, it went dry really quick for off-road riding. I think we got 87 miles and that was nearly bone dry. Today, we got much better fuel economy. I think for 90 miles, we used 1.5 gallons. So that's not too bad. That's very good fuel economy, but this really needs a 3-gallon fuel tank. The good thing about this bike is you can ride it to the trails and just ride it home, even if there is a bit of freeway work or a bit of boring road work in between. So you're gonna do that riding and you're not gonna be worried about putting on the miles on, because service intervals are massive, whatever they are, they're like 6,000 miles or something like that, and it's just dead set reliable. Get over! So what are my overall impressions on the KLX300 Dual Sport? I think this is a really good bike. It's not flashy, it's not exciting, but it does a lot of things very well. It's very much a jack of all trades. The thing is built like a tank. There's absolutely nothing that's going to go wrong on this bike. We had a couple of small tip overs yesterday. You wouldn't even notice. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the bike. One thing I will say is, if you want something exciting or a really experienced rider, this probably isn't for you. I'm a reasonably experienced rider and it does feel a bit underpowered for me. Off-road, it works great. It will take you absolutely anywhere you want to go. So Kawasaki have designed this bike to be kind of a second bike in the garage, or getting back into riding or something like that, where the KLX250 was It's kind of a bit dull, and if you're someone like me, I have one, don't get me wrong, but it's a pretty boring bike. But I love riding, so I'll ride anything. It was cheap, it's reliable, that's why I got it. Whereas this is a little bit of a step up. It's got that little bit more punch, it's smoother, it's more refined, and the fuel injection works fantastic. So I suppose the big question is, would I buy one? Well, one thing is I'm moving back to Australia soon, so I can't. If I was staying here in America, would I buy one? I think I would. I think I would buy the Dual Sport. I like the Dual Sport bike. It's really good off-road. The suspension's way better than you would think it would be for such a cheap bike. I think it's definitely going to have that over CR300L. That hasn't been released, but I highly doubt that suspension's going to be better than this. The engine's an improvement. It's got that little bit more bottom end and mid-range. It could still use more. I really would like this bike in a 350 or just this, but a little bit hotter, but they're probably doing what they can out of this engine at the moment. So overall, I really liked riding this bike. It was great to ride off-road. Yeah, it's not exciting, but you're on a bike, it's really smooth, it's refined, it's very easy to ride. You ride it all day, no issues at all. I liked it. I think I'd maybe get one. Yeah, I liked it. All right, that's it for me for this video. I'm also doing a review on the KLX300 motard. You've probably seen that in the background just there while I've been filming this. So I'm going to be doing a separate review on that, and I'm also going to be doing a comparison between the two, so look out for that. All right, keep it on the back wheels, people. Thanks for watching.